Major Audie Murphy stood tall as the gleaming silver doors of the alien spacecraft opened. He straightened his dress uniform and took a deep breath. This moment would go down in human history, the first official diplomatic meeting between Earth and the Zornax Confederation. Behind him stood Earth's small delegation, 3 diplomats, 2 scientists, and 2 other military officers. They represented the best humanity had to offer. After years of distant communication and careful negotiation, the aliens had finally agreed to face-to-face talks. The aliens emerged from their ship. They walked on 2 legs like humans, but had bluish-gray skin that seemed to shimmer under the lights. Their eyes were large and entirely black. 4 of them wore elaborate robes with symbols that probably showed their rank. The 5th, who stepped forward first, wore a metallic suit that hummed softly. "Welcome to Earth," said Ambassador Helen Young, stepping forward with Murphy. "We are honored to receive the representatives of the Zornax Confederation." The lead alien's translator device clicked in Word. "I am High Commander Vexer. We accept your welcome and look forward to productive discussions." The meeting moved to a conference room prepared specially for this occasion. Large windows allowed sunlight to fill the room, and the walls displayed beautiful images of Earth landscapes. Murphy noticed how the aliens studied everything with their unblinking eyes. As planned, each member of Earth's team introduced themselves. When Murphy's turn came, he stood and spoke clearly. "Major Audie Murphy, military attaché for Earth's United Defense Force. I served in 3 peacekeeping missions and received commendations for my work securing peace in conflict regions." Murphy had kept his introduction brief and modest. He hadn't mentioned his more classified operations or his full record of 12 combat engagements. The diplomatic team had advised all military personnel to appear professional, but not threatening. A strange sound filled the room. It took Murphy a moment to recognize it as laughter. The aliens were making a clicking noise while their shoulders shook. The humans exchanged confused glances. High Commander Vexer spoke after the laughter died down. "Forgive our reaction. It is just that hearing of your military achievements is quite amusing. By our standards, it is like watching a child proudly announce they have won a game of sticks and stones." Murphy's face remained calm, but he felt heat rise to his cheeks. Ambassador Young quickly tried to move the conversation forward, but Vexer wasn't finished. "You see," the alien continued, pointing a long finger at Murphy, "your species' concept of warfare is extremely primitive. What you call advanced weapons would barely qualify as training tools for our youngest cadets." Another alien, introduced as Science Minister Kraz, added, "We have studied your military history. Your world wars and nuclear weapons are merely the first stumbling steps of a species learning basic physics. Quite quaint, really." Murphy felt his jaw tighten, but remained silent. This wasn't going according to plan. The diplomatic team had expected curiosity, perhaps caution, but not outright mockery. Ambassador Young spoke firmly. "We understand our technologies may differ, but every species' path of development is unique. We hope to learn from each other through respectful exchange." High Commander Vexer made a gesture that might have been agreement. "Of course. And we have much to offer your developing world. That is why we have prepared a generous proposal." Thus, alien tapped on a small device and a holographic display appeared in the center of the table. It showed a complex document in both Zornax symbols and English translation. "We propose Earth become a protectorate of the Zornax Confederation," Vexer announced. "We will provide limited technological assistance, guidance, and of course, protection from other less friendly species in our galaxy." Dr. Paul Johnson, Earth's lead scientist, leaned forward. "And what would Earth provide in return? Access to your natural resources, observation rights, and compliance with Confederation directives," Vexer replied smoothly. "A standard arrangement we have with dozens of developing worlds." Murphy couldn't stay silent any longer. "And military cooperation? Would Earth forces have a role in this arrangement?" The alien laughter erupted again, louder this time. Vexer turned to his companions and said something in their language that made them laugh even harder. Then he addressed Murphy directly. My dear Major, your species' military would have the same role as a pet dog during a home invasion. Perhaps you might make noise to alert us of problems, but the actual protection would be handled by the adults in the room. Murphy watched as one of the aliens pointed a small device toward him. A beam of light scanned him up and down. What was that? Demanded General Susan Miller, who had been quietly observing until now. Just recording this charming moment, said Kraz. Your Major's expression is quite remarkable. We often document our first meetings with new species for our historical archives. Later, the Earth team would discover that the recording was being shared across Zornax networks with mocking commentary about the primitive apes and their toy soldiers. But for now, they continued the difficult meeting. The aliens outlined their protectorate proposal in more detail. It became increasingly clear that they viewed Earth as a resource to be exploited, not a partner to be respected. After 3 tense hours, Ambassador Young spoke. We thank the Zornax Confederation for this proposal. As you can understand, such an important decision requires careful consideration by our world governments. We request time to review these terms. Vexer made a dismissive gesture. Take all the time you need. We are a patient people. We have watched your civilization for decades already. A few more months matter little to us. As the meeting concluded, and the aliens prepared to return to their ship, Vexer approached Murphy directly. Major, do not take our amusement personally. It is simply that we have encountered many species at your stage of development. They all believe they are special, unique, perhaps even dangerous. The alien patted Murphy's shoulder condescendingly. They never are. After the aliens departed, Earth's delegation gathered for an emergency debrief. The room buzzed with tension and disbelief. That went worse than our worst-case scenario, Ambassador Young said, looking exhausted. They see us as resources, not partners, Dr. Johnson added. The protectorate offer is thinly veiled colonization. General Miller turned to Murphy. Your thoughts, Major? Murphy had been quiet since the aliens left, processing everything he had observed. They're dangerous, but not because they're evil. They're dangerous because they're arrogant. They've forgotten what it's like to face a real challenge. He looked out the window at the clear blue sky, knowing alien eyes were watching from above. They expect us to either accept their offer or try to fight them conventionally. Either way, they win. Murphy turned back to the group, his eyes hard with determination. But humans have always been good at doing the unexpected. They think we're simple animals to be herded. I say we show them what happens when you corner a supposedly harmless creature. General Miller nodded slowly. I'll start making calls. We need to prepare, but quietly. As the others filed out, Murphy remained at the window. The aliens had mocked him, mocked all of humanity. They thought humans were weak, primitive, predictable. They would learn just how wrong they were. 3 months passed since the disastrous first contact with the Zornax. Earth governments debated the alien protectorate offer while secretly preparing for all possibilities. Major Audie Murphy had been assigned to lead a special analysis team, focused on understanding the Zornax military capabilities. Today, Lieutenant Jack Simmons rushed into Murphy's underground office without knocking. His face was pale, and he clutched a tablet tightly. Sir, you need to see this immediately, Simmons said, placing the tablet on Murphy's desk. Murphy looked up from the reports he had been reviewing. What am I looking at, Lieutenant? Intelligence from our deep space monitoring stations, sir, and information gathered by hackers who managed to access unprotected Zornax data streams. Simmons tapped the screen to show a series of images and translated text. We found a pattern in how the Zornax treat their protectorates. Murphy studied the information. The images showed planets with massive mining operations, what appeared to be alien concentration camps, worlds stripped of resources and left, barren. They've done this before, Murphy said quietly. At least 17 times in the last century alone, sir. They offer protection, gain access, then gradually take over. Within a generation, the local species is reduced to slave labor, and their world is stripped of everything valuable. Murphy stood and paced the small office. Have you shared this with General Miller? You're my first stop, sir. Should be in her inbox now, Murphy nodded. Good work, Simmons. Gather everything you can on their methods. I want to know exactly how they transition from helpful allies to colonial masters. After Simmons left, Murphy called together his core team. Combat engineer Olivia Wright and xenobiologist Dr. Alan Brown arrived within the hour. Murphy shared the disturbing intelligence. So they're glorified space locusts, Wright said, studying the images of devastated worlds. Dr. Brown adjusted his glasses. What interests me is their psychology. These recordings suggest they truly believe they're doing these species a favor. Their cultural superiority is so ingrained they see exploitation as charitable. What about their military tech? Murphy asked. Any weaknesses we can exploit? Wright pulled up her own research. They're about 200 years ahead of us in weapons technology. Their ships have energy shields we can't penetrate with conventional weapons, but she highlighted part of her report. They rely almost entirely on automated systems. Their troops rarely engage in actual combat anymore. Meaning? Murphy prompted. Meaning they're soft, Wright said bluntly. Advanced tech, but they've forgotten how to fight. Everything's automated, predictable. They haven't faced real resistance in centuries. A sharp knock interrupted them. General Miller entered with a grim expression. We have a situation, she said. The Zornax have established bases on Mars and Europa without permission. When our diplomatic team protested, they said, protection sometimes requires observation, and suggested we should be grateful. Murphy's jaw tightened. So it begins. It gets worse, Miller continued. We sent a small vessel to Mars to deliver a formal protest directly to their outpost. The Zornax destroyed it, all hands lost. Silence fell over the room. 20 brave men and women gone. What was their explanation? Dr. Brown finally asked. Miller's voice was cold with anger. They sent a single message. Pets should not leave their yards without permission. Murphy slammed his fist on the table. They see us as animals. The Security Council is meeting in 1 hour, Miller said. They'll want options. Major, I need your team there. An hour later, Murphy stood before the United Earth Defense Council. The room was filled with military and civilian leaders from around the world. The mood was a mix of fear and fury. The Zornax have shown their true intentions. Council President Richard Garcia said, they've established unauthorized bases in our solar system and killed our people. The question is, what can we do about it? Many voices spoke at once. Some called for immediate military action. Others warned that Earth stood no chance against alien technology. A few even suggested accepting the protectorate offer to buy time. When Murphy's turn came to speak, the room quieted. The Zornax believe we're helpless, he began. They expect us to either surrender or launch a conventional attack that they can easily defeat. Their arrogance is their weakness. He activated the room's display system, showing Wright's analysis of Zornax military capabilities alongside Simmons' intelligence about their previous conquests. They follow the same pattern every time. First, observation posts. Then, when the local species protests, a show of force to demonstrate superiority. They expect fear to lead to compliance. And if compliance doesn't come? Asked the Chinese representative. They escalate gradually, targeting military assets first, then civilian infrastructure. They avoid mass casualties at this stage. Damaged infrastructure is less valuable to them. Murphy moved through his presentation methodically. But here's what matters. In 17 conquests, they've never changed their approach. They're predictable because they've never needed to adapt. No species has ever surprised them after the first demonstration of force. Are you suggesting we can fight them and win? The Russian general asked skeptically. Their technology is centuries beyond ours. Murphy looked around the room. I'm suggesting we don't fight the way they expect. Humanity has a long history of defeating technologically superior forces through asymmetric warfare. We need to be unpredictable, creative, and willing to take risks they can't imagine. He outlined his initial proposal. Not a direct counterattack, but a multi-layered approach, a visible conventional buildup to hold their attention, while secretly developing unconventional capabilities they wouldn't expect. They'll monitor our obvious preparations and dismiss them, Murphy explained. Meanwhile, we work on their blind spots. Captain Lisa Frank, Earth's top cybersecurity expert, spoke next. My team has been analyzing the alien communications we've intercepted. Their systems are advanced but not fundamentally different from ours. With time, we could develop targeted cyber weapons. Commander Peter Ortiz from the Space Mining Guild added, our mining ships already have stealth capabilities to protect proprietary operations. We could repurpose them. Slowly, what would later be called the Murphy Doctrine took shape. Not a single strategy, but a philosophy. When conventional strength fails, change the rules of engagement. As the meeting concluded, President Garcia looked troubled. Even if this works, there will be casualties. The price will be high. The price of submission would be higher, Murphy replied. They've already shown what happens to species that surrender. General Miller stood. I propose we officially designate this plan as Operation Murphy. The vote was unanimous. 3 days later, Earth received another message from High Commander Vexer. The Zornax had noticed increased military activity and found it amusing. Your primitive weapons are charming, the message read. We will preserve some in museums after your surrender. What they couldn't see was Captain Frank's team working day and night to develop viruses tailored to Zornax systems, or Commander Ortiz quietly converting mining ships into stealth vessels, or Dr. Brown's team studying Zornax biology for vulnerabilities. The aliens continued to underestimate humans because they could not imagine being threatened by what they considered a primitive species. It was exactly what Murphy was counting on. Let them mock us, he told his team, as they worked through another long night. Pride comes before a fall. Captain Lisa Frank hadn't slept properly in days. Her eyes burned from staring at screens filled with alien code. Around her, 20 of Earth's best computer experts worked just as hard. They had converted an old underground bunker into their workspace, safe from alien surveillance. I think I found something, said Ryan Park, one of her youngest team members. Look at this pattern in their communication protocols. Frank moved to his station. The screen showed a complex sequence of signals. To most people, it would look like random noise. To her trained eye, it revealed a potential weakness. Their automation has a rhythm, she said, studying the pattern. Every 97 seconds, there's a verification check, but there's a microsecond delay before it restarts. Park nodded excitedly. A tiny gap in their defenses. If we time it just right, we might slip past their security, Frank finished. Good work. Keep mapping these patterns. I need to report this to Major Murphy. Across the complex, Commander Peter Ortiz supervised the modification of mining ships. These vessels were designed to extract resources from asteroids. Now they were being transformed into weapons of war. The EMP generator fits perfectly where the mineral processor used to be, said Chief Engineer Natalie Garcia. But we still have power regulation issues. If we fire at full strength, it might fry our own systems too. Ortiz examined the modified ship. What if we add the magnetic shielding from the ore separators? They're designed to contain electromagnetic fields. Garcia's eyes lit up. That might work. Let me run some simulations. Ortiz left her to work and stepped outside for a moment. Through a narrow window, he could see the night sky. Somewhere up there, the Zornax were watching, probably laughing at humanity's obvious military preparations. They couldn't see what was happening underground in secret facilities like this one. In yet another part of the complex, Dr. Alan Brown and his team studied everything they could learn about Zornax biology. They had limited samples, mainly skin, cells, and hair-like filaments collected from chairs after the first diplomatic meeting. Their cellular structure is fascinating, Dr. Brown told Dr. Kelly Martinez, the team's xenopsychologist. Their nervous system responds to electrical stimuli much like ours, but they're particularly sensitive to certain frequencies. Could that be useful? Martinez asked. Possibly. We're designing a device that could cause them severe discomfort without harming humans. Not lethal, but very distracting in a combat situation. Martinez nodded. My psychological analysis suggests another weakness. They literally cannot conceive of being threatened by us. It's not just arrogance. Their brains seem wired to categorize species into threatening or non-threatening, based mainly on technology level. And they've put us firmly in the non-threatening category, Brown said. Exactly. They'll ignore evidence that contradicts this belief. It's like a blind spot in their thinking. This information was all brought together in Major Murphy's command center. Maps and screens covered the walls, tracking both the visible, military buildup and the secret preparations. The Zornax have taken the bait, Lieutenant Simmons reported. Their surveillance has focused entirely on our conventional forces. Satellite imagery shows they've devoted 90% of their observation resources to monitoring our naval movements and aircraft testing. Murphy nodded. Good. What about their reaction? Mostly amusement, sir. They've been broadcasting what they call entertainment programs about our military efforts, basically mocking us across their network. General Miller, who had just entered the room, frowned. They're still not taking us seriously. That's good for now, but we need to be ready when that changes. Murphy turned to the large strategic display. How long until the fleet reaches Saturn? Zornax. Ships have established orbit around Saturn, Simmons said. 17 vessels in total. They're calling it a peacekeeping force, but it's clearly positioned to strike Earth if we don't accept their terms. Murphy studied the display thoughtfully. And our special projects? Captain Frank reports her team has developed viable cyber weapons tailored to Zornax systems. Commander Ortiz has completed modifications on 12 mining ships, with 8 more nearly ready. Dr. Brown has provided disruptors that should incapacitate Zornax personnel without affecting humans. Timeline for full readiness? General Miller asked. 2 more weeks minimum, Murphy replied. Miller shook her head. We may not have that long. Intelligence suggests they're preparing to issue an ultimatum, probably 30 days to accept protectorate status or face what they call pacification. The room fell silent as everyone considered what that meant. Pacification, based on recovered Zornax records, usually involved destroying military infrastructure and forcing submission. We need more time, Murphy said finally. We need to convince them we're scared but still debating. That might buy us the full 30 days. How do we do that? Miller asked. Send a message expressing concern about their fleet movements but requesting more details about the protectorate benefits. Ask questions that will take time to answer. Make them think we're seriously considering their offer. 3 days later, Earth received the expected ultimatum. As Murphy had predicted, the Zornax gave Earth 30 days to accept their terms or face consequences. High Commander Vexer delivered the message personally. We grow tired of your indecision, he said, his black eyes showing no emotion. 30 cycles to accept our generous offer, or we will be forced to demonstrate the futility of resistance. For your own protection, of course. Earth's public response was carefully crafted to appear frightened but still deliberating. Meanwhile, Operation Murphy accelerated. Sleep became optional. Food was delivered to workstations. Every moment counted. Captain, Frank's team finished their virus package, designed to infiltrate Zornax systems during that microsecond gap in their security. Commander Ortiz's modified mining ships were equipped with EMP weapons that could bypass alien shielding. Dr. Brown's team produced devices that could disorient Zornax physiology. 20 days into the 30-day ultimatum, Murphy called his core, team together. We're as ready as we'll ever be, he said. The question is, do we wait for them to attack or do we strike first? They expect us to either surrender or make a desperate last stand, General Miller said. They don't expect us to attack their fleet directly. Exactly, Murphy agreed. They believe we'll focus on defending Earth. Their fleet around Saturn is vulnerable precisely because they don't consider us a threat to it. What's your plan? Frank asked. Murphy activated the holographic display. It showed Saturn, its rings, and the positions of the Zornax vessels. Operation Trojan Horse, he said. We send what appears to be a diplomatic vessel carrying our surrender terms. They'll lower their security to receive it. But instead of diplomats, Frank began. Instead, It carries your cyber weapons package, Murphy finished. And while they're focused on the diplomatic vessel, my mining ships will already be in position, Ortiz added, seeing the plan. Hidden in Saturn's rings. Dr. Martinez looked concerned. This is an incredible gamble. Everything depends on them reacting exactly as we predict. That's why it will work, Murphy said confidently. Their psychological inability to see us as a threat makes them predictable. They literally cannot imagine us attacking them successfully. Who will command the diplomatic vessel? General Miller asked. It's essentially a suicide mission. I will, said Lieutenant Colonel Sam Rivera, who had been quietly listening. My team has volunteered. We know the risks. Murphy looked at each person in the room. This goes against every conventional military doctrine. If we fail, Earth will be defenseless. And if we do nothing, we become slaves, Frank said firmly. Then it's decided, General Miller said. Operation Trojan Horse begins in 10 days. May God help us all. As they left the meeting, Murphy found himself alone with Dr. Martinez. Do you think it will work? She asked quietly. Murphy considered for a moment. The Zornax mocked us for being violent primitives. The irony is that's exactly why we might win. We remember how to fight against impossible odds. They've forgotten. Lieutenant Colonel Sam Rivera stood on the bridge of the ship that would either save humanity or lead to its downfall. The vessel had been named Hope, though some crew members privately called it Sacrificial Lamb. From the outside, it looked like a standard diplomatic vessel. Inside, it carried the most advanced electronic warfare package ever created. Final systems check complete, reported Lieutenant Wendy Diaz, his communications officer. The virus package is secure and ready for deployment. Rivera nodded. And the EMP shielding? Operating at full capacity, confirmed Chief Engineer Ben Wilson. When the fireworks start, we'll be protected from the backlash. Rivera looked around at his volunteer crew, 15 men and women who had all written farewell letters to their families. They understood the mission: approach the Zornax fleet, transmit the virus, and probably die in the process. Remember, Rivera said to them, we only need to succeed for 90 seconds. That's how long it takes for Frank's virus to fully transmit and activate. After that, it doesn't matter what happens to us. The crew nodded solemnly. Their sacrifice would be worth it if Earth survived. Back on Earth, Major Murphy and General Miller watched from the underground command center as the Hope launched into space. Godspeed, Miller whispered. Murphy checked the time. Commander Ortiz's ships should already be in position. Indeed, 12 modified mining vessels had been slowly moving into position for days, hiding within Saturn's rings. The ice and rock provided perfect cover from Zornax sensors. Commander Ortiz himself led the hidden fleet, his ship positioned closest to the Zornax flagship. All units in position, Ortiz reported over the secure channel. EMP weapons charged and ready, waiting for the signal. The timing had to be perfect. The Hope would approach the Zornax fleet carrying what the aliens believed were surrender documents. When allowed to approach, it would transmit Captain Frank's virus during the microsecond vulnerability in the Zornax systems. 90 seconds later, Commander Ortiz's ships would activate their EMP weapons, disabling any vessels not already compromised by the virus. The Zornax fleet has detected the Hope, reported Lieutenant Simmons, watching the sensor data. They're hailing it. Murphy leaned forward. This is it. Everything depends on them believing we're surrendering. On the bridge of the Hope, Rivera received the incoming communication from the Zornax fleet. Earth vessel, came the voice of a Zornax officer. State your purpose. Rivera had rehearsed this moment countless times. His voice needed to sound defeated, but dignified. This is Lieutenant Colonel Rivera of Earth Diplomatic Corps. We bring Earth's response to the Confederation's offer of protectorate status. There was a pause. You are ahead of schedule. The ultimatum has 5 more days. Our leadership saw no reason to delay the inevitable, Rivera replied carefully. We request permission to deliver our response directly to High Commander Vexer. Another pause, longer this time. Rivera held his breath. If the Zornax became suspicious now, the plan would fail before it began. Finally, the alien responded. Permission granted. Proceed to coordinates being transmitted. You will be scanned and boarded before meeting the High Commander. Understood, Rivera said. We carry no weapons, only diplomatic personnel. The Hope changed course, heading toward the massive Zornax flagship. As they approached, Lieutenant Diaz monitored the alien scans sweeping their vessel. They're scanning. For conventional weapons and explosives, she whispered. Not for our actual payload. Rivera nodded. Just as we expected. Their arrogance blinds them to the real threat. As they drew closer to the flagship, Rivera gave the signal. Begin transmission countdown. All personnel to secure stations. The crew buckled into special seats designed to withstand extreme G-forces. If things went according to plan, they would soon need them. Transmission ready, Diaz confirmed. Waiting for the security gap. The ship's computer was programmed to detect the microsecond vulnerability in the Zornax security system. When it appeared, the virus would be automatically transmitted. Gap detected. Transmission initiated, announced the computer. On the Zornax flagship, High Commander Vexer prepared to receive the human surrender. He felt a mix of satisfaction and mild disappointment. These humans had shown a bit more spirit than most species, but in the end, they had recognized the futility of resistance like all the others. High Commander, reported his security officer. The human vessel has been scanned and cleared. They will dock in 5 minutes. Excellent, Vexer replied. Prepare the ceremonial reception area. I want this recorded for the archives. The surrender of new species always makes for popular viewing. What Vexer didn't know was that deep within his ship's systems, Captain Frank's virus was spreading. Rapidly. It moved through communication channels, weapon controls, and life support systems, remaining dormant for now. Back on the Hope, Diaz watched the progress. 60 seconds until full deployment. We're over halfway there. Rivera kept his eyes on the massive Zornax ships surrounding them. Any sign they've detected the transmission? None, sir. Their systems are accepting the virus as routine data. Packets. Meanwhile, in Saturn's rings, Commander Ortiz and his fleet waited. Each ship was equipped with an EMP weapon specifically designed to penetrate Zornax shields. Unlike conventional weapons, these would target the frequency vulnerabilities Dr. Brown had discovered in Zornax technology. 30 seconds to activation, Ortiz told his crews. Stand by. On Earth, Major Murphy watched multiple screens showing the positions of all forces. The Hope has successfully transmitted the virus. 80 seconds until it activates. General. Miller nodded tensely. And the Zornax still have no idea? None, Murphy confirmed. They're actually preparing a welcome ceremony for what they think is our surrender delegation. The next minute passed with excruciating slowness. Then, exactly 90 seconds after transmission began, Captain Frank's virus activated throughout the Zornax fleet. Across every Zornax vessel, systems began to fail. Weapons went offline. Shields flickered and died. Communication channels filled with static. Emergency alarms blared. On the flagship, Vexer stared in disbelief as his command console went dark. What is happening? He demanded. His officers had no answers. Their technology, which had served them reliably for centuries, was suddenly failing. That's when Commander Ortiz gave the order. Execute EMP strike now. From within Saturn's rings, 12 human vessels emerged, each targeting a specific Zornax ship. They fired their EMP weapons simultaneously. The effect was devastating. The electromagnetic pulses, calibrated to exploit Zornax technological vulnerabilities, washed over the alien vessels. Any systems that had survived the virus now failed, completely. On the Hope, Rivera felt the ship shudder as the EMP waves passed through them. Thanks to their shielding, their essential systems remained operational. We did it, Diaz said in amazement. The Zornax fleet is dead in space. Rivera allowed himself a small smile. Send the confirmation signal to Earth. Then prepare for Phase 2. The confirmation reached Earth's command center where relief swept through the room. Murphy turned to General Miller. The Zornax fleet is disabled. Time to bring in our conventional forces. Miller nodded and pressed a button on her console. All units, this is General Miller. Operation Trojan Horse was successful. Execute Phase 2 immediately. Earth's conventional military forces, which had been hiding behind Jupiter, now emerged, and headed towards Saturn at maximum speed. Led by General Miller's flagship USS Defiance, they would arrive in hours to secure the disabled Zornax vessels. Murphy sent a personal message to the Hope. Mission accomplished. Hold position if possible. Reinforcements en route. On the disabled Zornax flagship, High Commander Vexer watched in stunned disbelief as his officers tried desperately to restore power. For the first time in his long career, he felt something new. Fear. Impossible, he whispered. They're just primitives. How could they do this? Then his communication screen flickered to life with one final message before going dark completely. It was from Major Audie Murphy. You mocked our primitive violence. Now you get to experience it firsthand. 3 months after what became known as the Saturn shock, Earth had changed forever. The defeat of the Zornax fleet had provided humanity with unprecedented access to alien technology and intelligence. Captured Zornax vessels were brought back to Earth orbit for study. Databases containing centuries of scientific knowledge were carefully translated and analyzed. Major Audie Murphy, now promoted to General Murphy, stood by a window in the newly established Interstellar Defense Headquarters. From this vantage point, he could see one of the captured Zornax ships being carefully dismantled by engineers. General, the Council is ready for you, said Lieutenant Simmons, now his senior aide. Murphy nodded and followed Simmons to the conference room where Earth's military and scientific leadership had gathered. The mood was tense. Despite their victory at Saturn, Earth faced a new threat. The Zornax Confederation has assembled a counterattack force, General Miller announced as the meeting began. Our long-range sensors have detected over 50 vessels, heading toward our solar system. They'll arrive in less than 2 weeks. The room filled with concerned murmurs. Everyone understood what this meant. The victory at Saturn had been possible because the Zornax had underestimated humanity. That advantage was gone now. What's their likely strategy? Murphy asked. Dr. Kelly Martinez, who had been studying Zornax psychology, answered. They expect us to use their own technology against them. Their tactical plans assume we'll try to replicate their weapons and defenses, but use them in predictable ways. Murphy considered this. So they're preparing to counter their own technology? Exactly, Martinez confirmed. Their minds struggle with the concept of creative adaptation. They assume we'll simply copy what they have. Colonel Olivia Wright, formerly a combat engineer and now head of the Hybrid Technology Division, spoke up. That gives us another opportunity. We haven't just been copying their tech. We've been integrating it with human approaches. She activated the room's display system, showing schematics of modified Zornax technology. Their energy shields are more powerful than anything we could build, but they're inflexible. We've sacrificed some power to make them adaptable to changing attack patterns. Dr. Alan Brown added, and we've incorporated our understanding of Zornax physiology into our defensive systems. Their ships are designed for their comfort. Ours are designed to disorient them if they try to board. Murphy turned to Captain Lisa Frank, whose cyber warfare team had grown exponentially since their success. What about their command systems? We captured enough of their code to understand their approach, Frank explained. They rely on rigid protocols and automated responses. We've developed systems that appear to follow their rules but can change tactics mid-battle. As the meeting continued, it became clear that Earth had not been idle during the 3 months since Saturn. While studying alien technology, humans had been doing what they did best, adapting, innovating, and preparing for the unexpected. Murphy summarized their approach. The Zornax expect us to be them, just less advanced. Instead, we'll be us, enhanced by what we've learned from them. Phase 2 of the Murphy Doctrine, adapt and hybridize. 2 weeks later, the Zornax counterattack force arrived at the edge of the solar system. As expected, it was massive, the largest fleet the Confederation had assembled in centuries. From his command post on the USS Defiance, Murphy watched as Earth's defense fleet moved into position. Some were captured Zornax vessels, repurposed and modified. Others were human ships enhanced with alien technology. All incorporated the hybrid approach Colonel Wright had pioneered. They're broadcasting a message, reported Lieutenant Diaz, who had survived the Hope mission and now served on Murphy's staff. The face of a new Zornax commander filled the screen. This is Supreme War Leader Krazer of the Zornax Confederation. Your act of treachery at Saturn will be punished. Surrender now or be eradicated. Murphy's response was brief. We choose neither option. The battle began moments later. The Zornax attacked with overwhelming force, expecting to quickly devastate Earth's defenses. Their tactics were precise, powerful, and completely predictable. What they encountered instead was unlike anything in their combat history. Earth vessels seemed to anticipate their moves, shifting defense patterns just before the Zornax could exploit them. When Zornax boarding parties managed to enter human ships, they found environments that induced vertigo and confusion in their physiology, while humans remained unaffected. Most surprisingly to the aliens, Earth's combat systems appeared to learn during the battle itself, becoming more effective with each engagement. This was Dr. Brown's work, a biological computing element inspired by human neural adaptation, but enhanced by Zornax processing technology. In the command center on Earth, Captain Frank monitored the digital battlefield. The pattern recognition is working, she reported. We can predict their next 3 tactical moves with 87% accuracy. This was the other key to humanity's defense. By studying Zornax commanders' behavior, Dr. Martinez had identified subtle physiological tells in their decision-making process. These signals, invisible to the Zornax themselves, allowed human AI systems to predict their tactical choices. 6 hours into the battle, the tide had clearly turned. The Zornax had lost 37 ships while Earth forces had lost only 12. The alien fleet began to retreat. They're pulling back to regroup, General Miller observed. Should we pursue? Murphy considered briefly. No. We've made our point. Let them go. 3 days later, a single Zornax vessel returned under a flag of truce. Supreme War Leader Krazer requested a direct meeting with Earth's leadership. The Zornax were ready to negotiate. The meeting took place on neutral ground, a space station positioned between Earth and Mars. Murphy represented Earth's military, alongside civilian leaders from the United Earth Council. Krazer, flanked by subdued Zornax officers, looked at Murphy with what might have been respect. How? He asked simply. Murphy's answer was equally direct. You saw our history of violence as a weakness. What you failed to understand is that humans have been fighting and adapting to stronger enemies throughout our existence. We've spent thousands of years perfecting the art of defeating superior forces. By mocking us, you just gave us the motivation to show you exactly how good we are at it. The treaty negotiations lasted weeks, but the outcome was revolutionary. Earth would not only remain independent, but would be recognized as a rising power in the galaxy. The Zornax Confederation agreed to withdraw from Earth's solar system entirely and to establish fair trade relations. More importantly, other species that had been subjugated by the Zornax began their own resistance movements, inspired by humanity's example. The galactic balance of power had shifted permanently. 1 year after the Saturn shock, General Murphy stood on a podium at the newly established Earth Diplomatic Academy. Before him sat the first class of cadets who would represent humanity throughout the galaxy. The lesson of our conflict with the Zornax is not that humans are superior fighters, Murphy told them. It's that diversity of approach is the greatest strength in the universe. We succeeded because we didn't try to be like them. We embraced what makes us unique. He unveiled the Academy's motto, now famous throughout the galaxy. Respect all. Fear none. Underestimate no one. In a distant Zornax school for diplomatic offspring, a teacher explained the most important lesson of modern history. And that is why we now begin every diplomatic contact with careful respect, regardless of a species' technological level. The humans taught us that advancement comes in many forms, and mockers often find themselves mocked in the end. The story of how aliens mocked one human soldier and inadvertently triggered the rise of humanity became a cautionary tale taught in every advanced civilization's diplomatic academy for centuries to come. And Major Audie Murphy, whose name had once been laughed at by aliens who thought humans were merely clever apes, became known throughout the galaxy as the architect of a new era of interspecies relations based on mutual respect rather than technological superiority. The mockery had been answered. Humanity had struck back, and the galaxy would never be the same.